and we are talking women's college basketball. I know y'all probably thought we were going to skip over that, but we'll hop into it as the first half of the women's Final Four is set for the first time in school history. UCLA is among that group, beating LSU 72-65. Gabriela Jaquez led the Bruins with 18 points, while Tamia Gardner, I believe is her name. Yeah, Tamia Gardner added 15 off the bench as Lauren Betts got into foul trouble early and her teammates had to step up. Meanwhile, South Carolina held on to a late victory, beating Duke 54-50, and they head to their fifth straight Final Four, Chloe Kitts and Sonia Fagan combined for 26 in the win. And so now we have two teams in the Final Four. We have two more matchups to go, as that will happen on today as this episode is airing. But as of us recording it on Sunday at about 7 o'clock, these are the only two teams that have made it in the mix. So, Elijah, we'll start with South Carolina. What did you like about this game? And do you feel like this was just another way that the Gamecocks did what they were supposed to do, or did Duke really squander away an opportunity that they had?
Before I even get into it, what Duke did wrong, I'm just going to say South Carolina. I'm going to give them their flowers because all year you got to deal with people's best punch. When you're the best team that repeating as champions, they want to give you their best punch. I'm sorry, they won last year, but they want to get back to the mountaintop. So, with that being said, Kits, when the moment was the biggest, when the lights was the brightest, she hit that screen and roll, came her down and hit that layup to I think take the lead to 2. That showed you that hey, she's built for moments like this. South Carolina as a team is built for moments like this. I think with their slow starts, it's kind of shaky. It's kind of scary because they did the same thing against North Carolina State on Friday. Had a slow start against who I think was a better team against Duke today, and but they pulled it out. But you got to tip your head off to that team. I think South Carolina presence is under the basket. The further away from the basket, I don't think they're legit. But as much as they get under the basket, they can score. Now, with that being said, Duke did have this game in their hand, and they blew it that last possession. Basically, when you have the ball in the final seconds, if you're confident into the shots that you're trying to get, I would rather for you to go to the hole if you're only down by 2, like they were. Go to the hole, see if you could draw a foul because the referees wasn't choking on their whistles. They were blowing them today. Go to the hole, see if you could draw a foul, possibly get an and one, or get the best shot that you can get. I don't know the young lady's name, but to crossover, and shoot the wild shot that you shot, that to me blew the game. Now I'm with it. Go for the win. Go for the gusto. Shoot for the stars. But at the same time, be smart about it because you had an opportunity not only to probably get a 2-pointer and tie the game up, maybe an and one, or draw a foul, an offensive foul on the other end if you would have got the because you did that earlier in the game. You draw an offensive foul earlier in the game, they got you the ball right back.
Yeah,
You
just the
had a
position right before to set it up.
yeah,
That's really what helped them. Like South Carolina had the ball, they got the offensive foul call, the charge, and then they go down. And like you mentioned, they had a few seconds there remaining, and I don't think the shot clock was running. So it was
there's
literally
no shot
like,
clock.
bro, take the final shot. Either you make the shot and you tie the game or win it, or you go to overtime. Like that was the way the situation was set up. Like you're completely right about that. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I just think that was the way. But like I said, I think this is the Duke's first year, lady, and that's her first year as a head coach. So
Kara Lawson, yeah.
Carol Lawson, first year as a head coach at the University of Duke. So I mean, like you still could go on, and it's going to be many more years and many more chances you will get to play top tier teams if you're not the top tier team, to see if you could win in those moments because those moments do hurt. But again, for Duke, did they blow it? I think they did, but I don't want to give too much blame on that one possession because there was a lot more things that happened during that game, and I just think the Gamecocks, you know, as mature and sound as they are, they pulled this game out, and it showed that it takes experience to win games like this.
Yeah, you got to have that experience. And playing in championships and playing in NCAA tournaments and making deep runs, it helps to build a program because if they know what it's like to be in those positions in those moments, they're going to know exactly what to do. Um, to me, obviously Duke did a lot of better things in this game. They out rebounded South Carolina. They had more bench production than South Carolina had in the game. Uh, but it all came down to the fourth quarter. And it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. South Carolina outscored them 16-8 in the fourth, and their field goal percentage dropped tremendously. And that comes from, not taking high percentage shots. Like I get it, you want to be able to play your game, whether that's outside in, inside out, and all of that. But in moments when, I think at one point they were down by like 11 in the second quarter, I think it was, and they went on 8-0 run. They cut it down to 3. Like when you get in those tight situations, it's like, bro, you got to make those possessions count. And so to have the ball on that final play, that's not the entire game, but that is a huge moment that will stand out because, again, you have the final shot or you have the opportunity to take the final shot. And the shot that was taken was the 3-pointer that ultimately was an air ball. Your leading scorer also, Fournier, who, is not a starter and she came off the bench. She wasn't even on the floor when that instance or when that possession happened. So I don't know, like not having your best player there in that moment is kind of questionable. I know a lot of Duke fans are questioning that decision, and I kind of do too because she had what 18 points, shooting 8 of 17. She had hit a 3-pointer, played 32 minutes, so she played starter minutes. She just didn't start for you, running out in the starting lineup. But hats off to South Carolina. I don't want to discredit anything that these young ladies did. Championship pedigree always seems to win out when it matters most. But as they play these final 2 games, if they're trying to win a national championship, they're not going to be able to have those slow starts. They can't do that because it can ultimately bite them in the butt. Like I know it's not about how I just said it's not about how you start, but it's how you finish. But sometimes, like as we saw when they played against UConn, and you get down by that large amount, it becomes harder to dig yourself out of holes if it's too big that you've dug yourself into. Um, so credit to South Carolina. Hats off to Dawn Staley and what she's been able to do with that program. I was looking on, Instagram before we started recording, and she was talking about, somebody asked her a question of how she's been able to build a program that's gotten to that many Final Fours in the NIL era. And she just said that, when she sit down with recruits, she asked them, like, what's your priorities? If it's about NIL, go get that bag. But she's not concerned about getting players that only want the money. Like she wants people that want to compete, that want to win championships, and that want to play for South Carolina. NIL and making money and collectives and rev share, that is a part of the game. But for her to be as constant as she's been, as consistent as she's been, excuse me, it's just a tip of the cap to somebody like her that when she got there some almost 20 years ago, South Carolina wasn't hooping like this as a program. So for her to make them a staple, like you almost expect, if any team gonna make it to be one of the Final Four, South Carolina is probably gonna be one of them. And once again, they find themselves in that number. So kudos to that group for getting it done. And so we're going to switch gears now and talk about the UCLA LSU game, where we have a little bit more of a vested interest in because we are in the same state as the LSU Tigers are in. And man, it's a lot that goes into this. UCLA has Lauren Betts, and she is a monster at 6'7". Like she gonna bag you all the way down underneath the goal. And when she catch the ball, she going with her move and she's trying to go up. But LSU found a way to get her in early foul trouble and sat her on the bench. but they weren't able to truly capitalize on that. So Elijah, let's dive into it. What was your takeaways from the UCLA and LSU game?
My lady who could shoot. What's her name? How do you say her name properly?
Talking about Garner, or which
Gardner.
one?
That's her. Gardner. Yeah. Gardner looked like Stephen Curry. Gardner at one point, I don't know if she finished the game at this, but I know she was 5 for 7 from three, so she had 15 points, and she at one point that was all of her points, and that's my take on it. Bets, bets take so much attention. You got to think about it. You're switching people on her, and no matter who you got on her, you have to send help, and that leaves somebody open for an open shot, whether if they step in and take a long two or the three. And it was just going down for Gardner. For LSU, they got up to a slow start that we just talked about, South Carolina, the same way how they got up to. Michaela Williams started off 0 for 4. Anissa started off 0 for 4 with, I think, one turnover. But she finished the half 4 for 9. And I think Flage took a little bit longer to get things going. I like the big three, but it's outside of the big three of like setting them up. How can we get them in the game consistently? And I know not Dawn. I'm sorry, Kim Mulkey, basically, she took Poa out for Wilson, and Wilson's job was to set the offense. I think Wilson went like 0 for 7 or 1 for 6. I want to say.
Shine Day Wilson. She only took one shot. She was 0 for 1. It was a 3-pointer that she took early in the game. You're right. Last year, Poa was not a starter. She did play 11 minutes. She gave you 3 points off the bench, but she didn't start. I think that was the first time in a good little minute that she's not been a starting point guard there.
So it's just somebody to set that offense. But again, for LSU, now it's just a time to see what you can do when it comes to next year. But for UCLA, you got to tip your hat off to it. Betts played the game that she knows how to play, just pin somebody down and try to draw a double and kick it back out, and hopefully the Bruins make a shot. Because in the second quarter, she wasn't in the ball game at all, and LSU still defensively, I don't know what happened. Like you got how can I say this? You got the matchups that you wanted in the second quarter, but it still didn't flow your way for a little bit. But hey, man, if you're the Tigers, all you could do is just now you got to rinse and go on, because at the end of the day, you can't change the outcome. UCLA played a good game, and just the big three wasn't enough. I know that they turn over the ball a lot today as the collective unit, but it just wasn't enough today.
Yeah, it wasn't. And before I get into anything, shout out to Anissa Morrow for an incredible career.
Sure.
Her 2 seasons at LSU will go down in the history books as one of the greats. Like, she might not get a statue like Simone did, but man, she didn't win the championship like Angel Reese did, but she is right up there with one of the greatest LSU women's basketball players to ever do it. There was a report out that she broke her nose in the game, but then she came back in post game in the presser and refuted that, saying like, no, I didn't break my nose, but I took a big shot. I guess they just wanted to dramatize it a little bit more, but she did not break her nose. But when I look at this game, I think that it can be pointed to. I'm kind of like Pastor Chad Noor there, progressive. Shout out to him. 3 main points. 3 points. LSU turned the ball over a lot, and most of their turnovers came from the big three. You can't win games when you're turning the ball over, and they know this. And it's even worse when your best players are the ones turning it over. I think at one point, Michaela Williams had like 4 or 5 turnovers, and wasn't shooting well early on. And then, so if it's 15 turnovers, the big three had 13 of them. That hurts a lot, because if most of your production is coming from that group, and they're also turning it over, that means that when you're talking about plus and minus, or which way they're swaying the game, like it's kind of not helping. Like, they're not scoring and they're giving them extra possessions. It's not helping them. So turnovers hurt them tremendously, because it took away possessions that they would have had if they would have had the ball. The second thing is the second quarter, right? Lauren Betts gets 2 fouls there in the first, which, I thought that she would at least came back in for a few minutes there in the second, but she didn't play any of the second quarter at all. And when you think about that, if a defensive presence in the paint is not on the floor, you would think that you would want to attack the basket. But I felt like LSU was taking a lot of jump shots. They were taking a lot of shots early in the shot clock. Like, I think it's like 30 seconds or 20 some seconds there on the shot clock. I can't remember off my head because it differs between men and women. But early in the shot clock, they come down. It might be one or two people that touch the ball and they take a shot. Like, I get that their game is to play with a quick pace, but when you're struggling, it's like, hey, let's take some time. Let's run a set. Okay, let's get a shot for Flage to take. Let's get a shot for Michaela to take. Let's set it up to where Anissa gets going down in the post and then flow from there. And then the last thing was just that they didn't have enough production from their bench. LSU only had 6 points from the bench. Poa coming off the bench hit 1 3-pointer. Jersey Wolfenberg came in and hit a layup. And Kaylin Gilbert hit a free throw. That was it. You brought in Aaliyah Del Rosario for a minute. She came back out. You brought in Miracle Shepherd, which I didn't even realize that you brought her in, and she took a shot. And then Jada got in some last few seconds. So you brought in 6 players, and you only get 6 points from them. Meanwhile, on the other side, UCLA, Gardner comes off the bench, which ironically enough, the game before, she didn't take a shot, nor did she have any points. So no free throws. Shorty was out there doing straight cardio. She comes into this game. She goes 5 of 8 from 3. All of her points coming from beyond the arc. She scores 15 points. So you get 15 from her. You get 6 from Barker. And then 1 from Arnasalo, I think it is. How do you pronounce it? So that's 22 points to your 6. Those 3 things, the turnovers, the lack of, being able to execute there in the second quarter, taking advantage of Lauren Betts being off the floor, and the lack of bench production is ultimately what led to LSU not winning this game. And it's kind of frustrating, I'm sure, for the players, for Coach Mulkey, because it was a lot of moments where it was like, bro, you only down 5, you down 6, you're down 3, and you played about as bad as you could. You had about as slow of a start as you could, and you were right there. And UCLA had a lot of moments where they throw it down to Lauren Betts. Samaya Smith, credit to her. It was a lot of moments where she's battling. Lauren Betts tries to go and make a move. She swats the ball out of her hand. You get the possession, and you can't go and execute to get a bucket, or you can't put yourself in position to get a high percentage shot on the other end. That hurts, and it's frustrating. But all you can do now is say, the last 2 seasons since the national championship, we've gotten to Elite Eights. We're in the right direction. You're not taking a step backwards, so to speak. Obviously, you're 2 rounds away from what you were when you won the championship a few years ago, but you're heading in the right direction. You're getting quality players on your team, and you're making deep runs into the postseason. Now, I think they're going to need a big post player, a 6'3" and above post player to be able to help them going forward. Who knows what the future may hold. But as of right now, kudos to LSU on a phenomenal season, 31-6. Hats off to Anissa Morrow for a great career. And we'll be keeping an eye to see what Flage Johnson does, because she does have another year of eligibility, but she can declare for the WNBA draft. So UCLA comes out on top, beating LSU 72-65. South Carolina edges out Duke 54-50. And then switching over to the men's side, we haven't tapped in as closely with this, but we do know that for the first time since 2008, all 4 of the Final 4 teams are number 1 seeds. Duke getting a blowout victory over Alabama, Florida coming from behind to beat Texas Tech, Houston getting a blowout victory themselves, and then Auburn getting a close one over Michigan State. Elijah, is this like just a complete difference in the men's college basketball era? Because, bro, no Cinderellas. Like, the teams that was at the top made it all the way there. Like, if anybody picked all the 1 seeds, you got it. You might not have got the wins there in between, but you got all four there in the Final Four. What does this say about the way men's college basketball is now, man?
Never changed. I think it's the same thing. It's just new names that you probably would never see before. Like, I know Houston has been taking over for the last couple of years. It's usually North Carolina's spot, right? But at the same time, to me, this was the four best teams. It wasn't a fluke. The seeding didn't show anything different. You have Auburn, Houston, Florida, Duke. I think Duke with Cooper Flag is a force to be reckoned with. But I think the difference between with Houston and Florida, which I think are the two teams that make it, they're complete. There's not, I know they don't have a Cooper Flag, but for Houston defensively, we talked about it a little bit. Houston's number one defensively. So I know if they see Cooper Flag, if say Duke beats Florida and they see Cooper Flag, I have no doubt that Houston pulls that game out because they have five guys they could throw at him. For Florida, to me, I think Florida is the most complete team out of all of them because they can do it defensively and offensively. With Houston, sometimes they struggle to score. Other times they don't. For Florida, it's like when they own, there's nothing you could do. There's nothing you could do. So, nothing against Auburn. I think Auburn's a pretty solid team as well. But my two favorite teams is Florida and Houston. I think those two teams will meet Monday night, next Monday in the national championship game.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Quanez White, an assistant coach there for the Houston Cougars, going there to the Final Four. He'll be the new head coach of the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. You can check out my conversation with him there on our podcast here on the YouTube channel. When it comes to Houston, man, I mean, a complete team for sure. Like, bro, to hold a team, they play Tennessee. I didn't call them, but to hold Tennessee to 15 points in the first half, like, bro, that is mind-boggling. That is all-world defense. That is, forget putting them in a seatbelt, bro. Like, you put them in a car seat. You said, I'm going to buckle you up and you're not getting out. And to be able to hold on and, still win the game by 19 points, credit to head coach Kelvin Sampson, the culture that he's built there in the city of Houston for that basketball program in a city where there's a whole lot of other things going on. You got the Rockets, you got the Astros, all of this stuff going on in that city. Yet they have remained a constant here in college basketball. And then we know what Duke is as a blue blood. We know Cooper Flag is going to be the number one overall pick and how phenomenal he can be, how he can go out and get a bucket. And then Auburn and Florida have been teams that have been on the rise, especially there out of the SEC. We got two SEC teams here in the Final Four. So shout out to the Southeastern Conference for getting that done. The Final Four begins on Saturday there in San Antonio. If I'd have known this ahead of time, because I didn't realize it, I'd have went because my sister stay in San Antonio. So I'd have had free room and board. I'd have just needed to get the credential done. But maybe some other time. So we'll look forward to seeing who comes out on top as the national champion between these four teams. But it should be some good matchups because they're all the number one seeds, something that hasn't been done since 2008.
Thank you so much for watching this clip of the Fitz Take podcast. Be sure to like this video and also subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also follow me and Elijah on our social media platforms. They will be linked down in the description. And remember, every episode of the Fitz Take podcast will air right here on the YouTube channel every Monday at 2 p.m. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.